What would be the worst position to be in where someone else quits their job on the spot and you're involved? Like airline pilot. It's going to be a tough announcement.
No, airline pilot is fine because they're still on the plane.
Yeah, no, but they're like, I'm quitting now and I'm going back to cabin.
Okay, I have one. The worst position to be in, like MC at a company offsite.
But like, again, there's really nothing at stake there.
But are you saying, yeah, okay, doctor in middle of surgery. Like,
that's what I'm saying.
Like, that's
what if your brain surgeon was just like, I've had enough. The break room is out of snacks again. I'm quitting. What's up, everyone? Welcome back to Per My Last Email, the show where we give you the tactics and hot takes to help you navigate work life. My name is Kyle Hagee.
And mine is Kayla.
And we are recording in a literal sauna today.
It is
Kayla,
sweaty in here.
You're looking a little warm.
It's hot.
But we're gonna get through it.
We are.
We overcome obstacles.
Yes.
Very excited to be chatting with you today. We have a wonderful episode about when you should quit your job.
It's so true. So Kyle, I have an opening question for you.
Okay.
When would you quit your current job at Morning Brew?
Oh gosh, are we recording?
Turn the cameras off.
Can we be recording this? When I would quit my current job, I will say, truthfully, I'm not even thinking about it. Mm-hmm. I've had a great time at Morning Brew. We've been here 3+ years. Mm-hmm. And I actually genuinely feel very grateful for the opportunities we've had. I think we've grown a lot in our career. I love my colleagues. And I think when I would quit my current job at Morning Brew, right now I feel like I'm optimizing for learning. Like I really am excited about learning different parts of the business, doing stuff like podcasts where we're learning more about multimedia. And I feel like there's tons of opportunities to learn here because we're doing so many things at this company that I'm very excited to like wake up and continue to learn. So as long as we're continuing to do cool things at the company, I'll be here. The last thing I'll say is like, because I played too many team sports growing up, I over-index on like loyalty and like winning with the team you have and like sticking through a long tenure of ups and downs and being able to reflect back on it with people that have been here for a long time like you and be like, man, we really did that. Like we got through a lot together. So I feel like because I've been tenured enough, I'm getting a lot of joy about staying at the company and being able to increase that tenure. So, Robert, if you're listening, don't worry about it.
Yeah, you sound like a kiss ass, Kyle.
It's true. I promise. What about you?
I am never leaving.
Okay.
Austin.
Now you sound like a kiss ass.
Take note. No, I mean, it's really tough to say. I think I completely agree with everything that you have just said. Like, if I was feeling like I couldn't see a career path or something like a next step or next 3 steps, then I'd probably start to get a little less excited about the role. But right now I'm having a great time and I have no plans to quit anytime soon.
You're like, I can see the next step, and that's CEO of Morning Brew.
And I'm coming.
Watch out,
Austin. No, that's a joke.
Well, the reason I'm really excited to talk about this particular topic is I feel like I've had so many conversations with people recently that are kind of okay with their job, but they're thinking about like, what's next for me? Am I going to stay at the company? Should I be entertaining leaving my job? Like, what else is out there for me? And I feel like we're in this period now where people are really thinking about what's the criteria that would make me quit my job. And so there's a lot we're going to get into. Before we get into it, let's set the scene. Let's drop some stats on the people. People love stats. So this kind of came into the cultural zeitgeist, if you will, with the Great Resignation. The word that no one wants to hear again, because we already heard too much about it, but during this period of quote unquote Great Resignation, 4.5 million people were quitting their jobs per month. And
that's a lot.
A ton. And this was the period between 2021 and 2022. And that has started to dip now. So we're kind of out of the Great Resignation, but I think that put a seed in everyone's mind to think about, do I need to be staying at my job or should I leave for quote unquote greener pastures?
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. And I also did some research about this.
Kayla did research.
Crazy.
First time ever for the podcast.
That's not true.
Welcome to Informed Takes, Kayla. We're glad to have you.
So last year, there were 2 job openings for every job seeker.
Yeah.
So that makes a lot of sense, right? Right at the end of the Great Resignation, it was easy. I, again, hate that. But we've talked about
for a certain subset of employees, it was easy to find a new job.
It was easy to find a new job, or the perception that jobs were available was, high.
Yeah.
So it basically what we've seen is that was very much an employee market. And recently it's shifted a little bit more towards an employer market.
Yeah.
So I do understand why people aren't maybe quitting as willy-nilly or wanting to think about it a little bit more before taking
Right.
the leap.
Which makes this very interesting because I think people are still thinking about it, but maybe their perception is that the market isn't as available to them as before. And so the decision to quit is getting a little harder than it was a couple years ago. Gallup recently came out with a survey which said that 48% of current employees are open to quitting. So there is this sense,
What do you mean by 48% are open to quitting?
I feel like Gallup, our take is like 100% of people should be open to quitting. Like
if I offered you $500,000 and a 5-hour work week, you're telling me that 52% would say no.
No, sorry, not open to it. Yeah,
not open.
If the Minnesota Timberwolves called and said, "Hey, we need you to come off the bench for Game 3 against the Denver Nuggets," I'm sorry, Morning Brew. I know I just said I would never quit, but I'm there. Put me in, coach. So we should look into how Gallup defined that. We didn't because it's more fun to have conjecture. But what I think they're saying is like, are people actively maybe taking a call from a recruiter?
Sure.
Have they had at least one interview? Like a sign of like actively being open to quitting where you're kind of pursuing options yourself. Some other stats. Why do people quit their current job? 34% cited a toxic workplace. About 25% cited a lack of flexibility. So it's either like so bad you need to get out, or because we now have hybrid work, the policies at your current employer aren't matching your needs. And so it makes you more open to quitting, finding a work setup that's more convenient for your current life situations.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense. And what's kind of shocking to me is that 34% toxic number. Because if a third of people are leaving their jobs because the workplace is toxic, that means that there was a lot of toxic workplaces out there, and the chances that you're going from one toxic workplace to another might be high.
And we'll get into like that, like grass might not always be greener. The last thing I want to say is Pew also did a study about why people left, and they cited reasons: low pay, no opportunities for advancement, and feeling like not appreciated at work. And so I have an Anna Karenina quote for you.
Oh my God.
That's right. He does it all. Business podcast.
Why are you doing this?
Literary giant. But there's a famous quote from that book that says, all happy families are the same. All unhappy families are unhappy in their own way. And I think this relates to employees. Like most happy employees, they have the same kind of boxes checked. They're feeling appreciated at work. They feel like their compensation is fair. They have opportunities for advancement. But quitting is interesting because you might be indexing on compensation. You really want to have the highest earning potential and you're not getting that at your job, so you're open to quitting. You might feel like you want to advance in your career up, but your director's never leaving, so you're going to quit because of that. So it only takes like one reason to quit, but it takes like 4 or 5 reasons to feel appreciated and want to stay at work. So I think that's a pretty great quote.
I was really judging at the beginning, but I think you might be onto something.
And the last stat I want to say before we give our takes is this also affects employers. So if you're a manager or you're running a company listening to this, the cost of turnover is super high. Businesses spend $1 trillion every single year combating losing employees. And the cost...
$1 trillion?
$1 trillion.
That doesn't make any sense. That's really high.
We're gonna have to fact check that.
Okay.
They spend a lot of money.
I believe you.
But maybe that's not right. But I do have one that will be right, which is the cost of replacing an employee is anywhere from half to 2x their salary. And so if you lose like someone in the C-suite, the search for finding a new C-suite person is really, really expensive. Onboarding costs, offboarding costs. And so the way to keep costs low is actually to make sure you have a non-toxic workplace so you're not consistently churning employees. So we've set the scene. Kayla, let's talk about when you should quit your job. And I know you have quit a few jobs.
I think everyone has probably quit a few jobs, unless you're like, you've been working at the same like big company for the past 50 years.
Well, give us one of your stories about quitting and kind of what you thought about during that time.
Sure, yeah. So the first time that I like formally quit a job was in finance. I was in a situation that was not super conducive for my mental health. It was challenging, right? And like, I think that the finance industry kind of has a lot of stigmas around.
You don't say.
How hard people work, and the hours that are expected, and the kind of like, environment that is created there.
But how else are you going to make shareholder value?
Exactly. So I was kind of sick of shareholder value, and I said, you know what? I'm going to leave. But when I was leaving this company, I knew it was time because, first of all, every single day I was hating my life. I dreaded coming to work. And that doesn't mean that everyone should dread coming to work at a finance job. I just personally, for me, I found it was quite difficult to come to work. And I was doing long hours. It made it just a lot worse. The environment was getting a little bit too toxic. I didn't think that, outside of the very close friends and literally now fiance that I had met at that job, like it was very hard for me to work.
You got what you needed out of the job, which was a fiance.
Which was a fiance.
Check the box, I'm done
friends, here. And I was like, gotta go. And then even the tasks that I really had enjoyed felt like pulling teeth.
Yeah.
And I was like, if I love, writing these briefs and even this is just awful and it's draining my energy, like I need to start finding other opportunities outside of this.
Yeah. I have a question for
Yeah.
you. Would you have quit this job even if you didn't have another job lined up? Was it that bad?
Yes. So actually that's kind of what I did. It was October, and in finance you get bonus checks and they can kind of be a large percentage of your
Tell me
salary.
more about these bonus checks. That sounds nice.
So we were anticipating bonus checks. Me and my now fiance, we basically sat down and I was like, listen, I hate this. It's October. We know that, March 15th, we're going to get our bonuses. I need to quit by April 1st.
Wow.
So in October, I was like, April 1st, whether I have a job or not, I'm going to quit. Mm-hmm. And I ended up spending those few months furiously applying to jobs. I was located in Florida, actually, and I wanted to move to New York. And I was applying and applying and applying, and I wasn't getting any hits, and I was getting very frustrated. I actually ended up changing my address on my resume to a random apartment in New York.
That legitimately is a pro tip if you're applying to jobs.
It actually works because any of the conversations that I had before that, people thought they were going to have to pay for me to move. And I was like, no, I'll move, whatever. I ended up getting a job on March 31st.
Yeah.
So I was able to quit with a job lined up. Which
That's
was
so
great,
funny.
But I would have.
Until they look at your address and it's a Chipotle and they're like, do you live at a Chipotle?
Are you okay? Yeah.
Really interesting. I think I think most people, if you are in such a toxic work environment that your mental health is declining and you would quit even if you don't have another job lined up, I think that's a small bucket of people
I agree.
that would quit and not have anything lined up after. That's you just have to get out of that situation. I think the people we're speaking to are people that are okay at their current job, but they're thinking through what factors should I be considering in order to quit? And I think my quit story is almost the opposite of yours. Mm-hmm. I was working at Marquette. I loved the person I was working with. He's still a friend and mentor to me today. His name is Chuck. And I really loved my job. But again, going back to this criteria of learning, I felt like I had learned everything I could from that job, from Chuck at that point. And there was not an opportunity for me because I was working at Marquette and no one ever retires at a university to really move up. And so I had to have a difficult conversation putting in my 2 weeks saying, hey, I'm quitting. It's nothing wrong with you. It's nothing wrong with this job.
It's me.
Literally, it's not, it's not you, it's me, them. And what I think was really powerful about that and what I think a fear a lot of people have is when you quit, you're going to let down your team. You're going to let down your manager. I think when you quit and you respect your manager, respect your team, it's actually a great test of character. For you, are you going to do it professionally, but also for them? I think if you really do respect someone, if you quit professionally and they're pissed at you, maybe that's not a mentor you should have been looking up to in the first place. Chuck's literal reaction was damn, you're quitting. I'm really sad about that, but I'm really excited for you because I know you're going to go on to do wonderful things. And that only strengthened the relationship. Yeah. So quitting doesn't have to be this really terrifying thing. It can be something that actually strengthens the relationship over time.
We'll be right back after this. Okay, back to the show. So when you quit at that job, you had the job at Morning Brew.
Yes, I moved from Morning Brew.
Would you ever quit without something else lined up?
I would only quit without something else lined up if I was in your situation where it was causing active stress. And I think if it was causing stress to other elements of my life, if my relationships were falling apart, if I wasn't texting my mom because I was so stressed all the time, then I would, have to prioritize those other things. But if I was just not enjoying the work, but I didn't have something lined up, I would not quit.
Okay.
Okay. So let's get into some takes.
Sure.
My first take is if you're considering quitting your job, the first thing I would do is make sure you exhaust all of the options at your current employer. I find that a lot of people, they're like not excited about their job. And then they're like, okay, so I don't like my current job at this company. I have to quit. I have to go find something else. If you're considering that, you're playing with house money at that point. You're willing to walk away from your current job. Go to your manager and be like, hey, well, first, think about your dream job at your current company. Then go to your manager and say, hey, I got to be honest. Like, I'm not enjoying my current work as much as I was when I started. I love the company. I love you as a manager. Here's my dream job at this company. How could I get there? And here's what I want my salary to be at that dream job. If they can articulate a plan, then maybe you actually end up with your dream job at your current company. But I would explore that option. And if they say no, okay, you're back in the same spot you were, which is I'm going to start looking for other options.
Yeah, that was literally one of my tactics, which is quitting isn't the only way out.
Yeah.
Especially if you're really scared.
Yeah.
Or you don't want to have that conversation, or you love your company, you love, the team that you're working with. There's a lot of other options. I was actually just yesterday talking to one of my friends who's feeling a little bit burnt out, which is something we should definitely talk about in another episode, because there's so much there, and wants out and is feeling very frustrated. But she loves her team and her team loves her. And so they're basically exploring like a mini sabbatical option.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah. So she's going to be taking a few months off and then potentially re-entering the company in a slightly different position that she's more excited about.
Mm-hmm. And I imagine having that conversation was a difficult and possibly scary conversation for your friend. And I think the issue is, and I'm putting myself in this bucket, like people are afraid of confrontation. They're afraid of letting their manager down, afraid of saying how they're feeling. But if you can get through that, you might end up with a mini sabbatical. It might lead to something really, really great. So I would just encourage people, like, don't quit before you've had a difficult conversation about what a dream job could look like at your current organization.
Yep.
The other thing I'll say is, like, the grass is always greener on the other side, but when you get to the other side, it might not actually be greener. So really consider, like, okay, the issues that I'm seeing at my current company. Sometimes we get in a vacuum. We're only thinking about like our situation at our company. Are those issues that are going to exist at other companies too? Because you might leave your job and there is a chance that the job you leave for is actually worse.
Right.
So you should really make sure that, like, are these issues that are unique to the company? Are these just issues of like, look, you work in America and things are tough. It's not a guarantee that when you leave, there is going to be something better. So really identifying what's causing you to have these feelings about quitting at your current job. Are they, particular to your current company, or are they just exist in corporate America? Yeah,
I love that. It's like the devil you know versus the devil you don't.
Yes.
They're both bad.
They're both devils.
Yeah. So, I think you're spot on there. It's like, is this an issue that you're facing that is guaranteed unique to your situation that you cannot get out of by having that difficult conversation or exploring other options in your current company?
Yeah.
And then, also when you're doing the research of what your next role is going to be, having those conversations to make sure that you're not entering a worse or equally bad situation.
Yeah. So a lot of people, I feel like, when they're thinking about quitting, a common topic, we saw this in the Pew research that said low pay was the reason people quit. So they're trying to optimize for compensation. And we know that just like historically, it's been easier to increase your compensation by job hopping. What do you think about that strategy? Like, if you are trying to increase your compensation, it feels like the best option is to go take another job that's going to boost your pay 20, 25%. How should people think about that strategy when they're considering quitting?
I mean, it's effective.
Yeah.
I think, again, like what you said, exhausting all options and figuring out what you're optimizing for. So like what you said, you're optimizing for learning right now.
Yep.
Then you probably, if somebody came in and offered you a 20% increase, I actually don't know, you probably should take that. That's but if you really are truly optimizing for learning right now, you'd probably say, well, I don't know that I can learn that much it's not guaranteed that I'll continue to grow the way I'm growing right now, so I'm not interested in taking that job.
Yeah. And what's interesting, we've talked to people even at Morning Brew, but I think this is a common strategy at other companies is, again, if you get an offer from another company, it doesn't mean that the options are stay at your current job with your current pay or jump to that. You can, if you do it delicately enough, take that offer, go to your current manager and say, hey, like, this is what I'm trying to optimize for right now is compensation. I went out and tested the market. Here's what the market is telling me I can make. Are you able to match this offer? Now, if you start doing that every week, your manager is probably going to be a little pissed.
Yeah.
But if you do that, once every 6 months, once every year, like you are, again, putting the ball in their court and you might actually get what you want, but you have to do a little due diligence on the side to put yourself in a position to increase your compensation at your current job.
Yeah, I actually did this.
Okay.
Yeah. So
You do this at Morning Brew?
No. I did this when I was leaving for Morning Brew. I got the job offer here at, the past job I had here. And then I went back to my old job because I really did love my job. I loved my team and I loved what I was doing. And yeah, I was like feeling like there were some issues with the company. I was feeling kind of towards the end of my trajectory there. And I was very excited about the Morning Brew position. But if they had matched my salary or provided me with, a more like a path to management, I might have taken it.
Yeah.
So basically I came back with a job offer. I said, listen, I'm really excited about this job offer. I'm probably going to take it, but I just wanted to provide you with the opportunity to match, which was kind of baller. I was like pretty stressed out about it.
Yeah, that's gangster move.
I was really scared. And I did cry in this conversation. So like I didn't have a lot of leverage there.
Yeah.
But they said, okay, we're going to see. And they went, my manager went and talked to, the powers that be and came back and said, we can't match it exactly. We can give you a 10% raise and we can, guarantee within the next year, you're going to be a manager. I had to say, listen, I'm really sorry, but like, I can't take that. And so, but having that conversation is like, what's the worst that happens?
Yeah.
Like, they say they can't match it and you take the other job.
Yeah.
I think what's bad is when you're bluffing.
Yeah, don't bluff. Unless you're a professional poker player, like you're not going to make that make through that. I want to say like that's really cool that you did that. I don't know if I knew that, but like like that is the difficult conversation that I think a lot of people are unwilling or afraid to have. Yeah. And like, look, you just said you cried during that conversation. Like, we're not saying these are easy conversations. Yeah. But it's really powerful to be able to do that. And now you're more confident the next time you have to go and do that. And thank God CB Insights did not match because we got you at Morning Brew. Yeah. We wouldn't be having the podcast right now.
Exactly.
I want to go back to criteria because this is another thing I think is really important to think about when you're considering quitting a job is what are you optimizing for? We've talked a lot about compensation, but that doesn't need to be the thing that you're trying to get the most out of your current job. We had interviewed Kat Cole for many Morning Brew learning programs, and she said early in her career, she was trying to optimize for learning. She said learning was her currency. She almost like didn't even care about the compensation. She wanted to put herself in a position where she was learning as much as possible, taking on a ton of different roles, knowing that okay, I might be paid under market right now, but I'm gathering all of these dots that I'm going to be able to connect and become a really dynamic leader in the future and then command a really high compensation. And like, it worked out quite well for Kat Cole. She's the current COO of Athletic Greens. You also might be trying to optimize for work-life balance. Maybe you have a new family and it's really important for you to have a job that you can log off at 5 o'clock. Yeah. And what you're considering in your career, what you're optimizing for, the important thing is it's going to change over time. You might be in an era of your life where you are trying to optimize for compensation. And I think a lot of people get stuck on, okay, the only thing I should optimize for my entire career is pay, but that should change. And so before you consider quitting, I would literally sit down and like write out like, what are the top 3 things that are important to me? Why am I not getting those in my current job? And can I guarantee that this new job I'm considering is going to offer me those 3 things? Really important thing to even bring up in interviews. Like, I'm trying to optimize for these 3 categories. Is that what I'm going to get here? Make sure that when you leave, you're going to the situation that you actually want to be in.
Yeah, I really like that. And I really respect Kat Cole saying that she was optimizing for learning.
Yeah.
Because I do think it requires a lot of like foresight.
And it's just self-awareness too.
Yeah, that's really great. And it's so easy to look at your options. There's path A, path B. Path A gives me X amount of dollars. Path B gives me less than X amount of dollars, and choose path B.
Yep.
I think that's really interesting. And that's, again, a whole other podcast we could talk about.
Yeah. And another thing I want to say, and this is, relates to us, when we were out, I don't manage anyone now at Morning Brew, but I used to manage 2 people who are really close friends of mine now.
Yep.
And honestly, when they were at Morning Brew, they were super dynamic. They were so great. There honestly was not a lot of room to move up because that particular business unit wasn't growing. And so if your business unit is not growing, like we're not going to hire more people. Like it's going to be hard for you to move up. And no one at the top was leaving. So there wasn't like a clear path. Okay, in 6 months I could become director of community because I was not going to leave. And so sometimes I think people get in their own head of like, I'm really close to my manager. I'm really close to this team. I don't want to let them down. Again, it's like a character test. If you leave, like you're not disgracing your manager or disgracing your team unless you go out in a really unprofessional way. And I'm so proud of them because in some ways that business unit shutting down was like a really powerful thing where they like, you know, forced quit their job. And they both got jobs that I think are even better than the ones they're doing here. And they're really growing in their career and thriving. And like, we're still super close. And, you know, there's always this fact of like a boomerang employee. Sometimes you leave, you gain new skills, and then the job you wanted at your current employer opens up and you can come back. But I just don't want people to feel like if you're quitting, you're like bailing on your team, because I don't think that is the perception that a great manager or a great team should have.
I really like that. And I think that's a great tip. Do you have any other tactics for anyone thinking about potentially quitting?
Yeah, my tactics, it's going to be a summary, but first thing is criteria. Figure out what you're optimizing for. The second is run a thorough process. I think when people consider quitting, they almost take the first thing available to them because they're like, I want to quit. I have a new job offer. Perfect. You're going to end up in a similar situation if you're not thoughtful about what you're leaving for. And so run a process. Like the best time to quit your job is when you have one and you have pay and things are going okay. So like always take the call. If a recruiter reaches out to you, have the call, see what your market value is. Even if you're not considering quitting, it's going to give you leverage in the future. And I would not quit unless I've really done due diligence on like 5 other companies that I might be interested in to really suss out, is this a better environment or is this not? My last piece of advice or tactic is do not burn bridges. The world is a lot smaller than you think. I think one of the greatest signs, again, of character is if you are leaving a job that wasn't toxic and you do it in a professional way, you make sure that the offboarding of you is smooth. You make sure you've trained up your team before you leave. Make sure you've given your manager notice. People watch how you leave and people remember how you leave really, I think, thoughtfully. And you'd be amazed at how many opportunities open up when you leave in good graces. Sometimes your organizations can work together. Sometimes you boomerang back. Just don't burn a bridge. Be thoughtful about when you're quitting. And I think it's going to lead to a lot of long-term career growth if you do that thoughtfully.
I really love that. I think that's a good one. Quit well.
What are your tactics?
I have 2. So as I mentioned, quitting isn't the only way out. Right? Having that difficult conversation and trying to exhaust all your options, I think is similar to what you were saying. You could take a sabbatical. You can do a lateral move. You know, maybe there's a situation that was bothering you and made you want to quit, and having a difficult conversation resolves that situation. Maybe you're overworked and setting boundaries is actually the solution versus quitting. So I think making sure that you've exhausted all options, which is very similar to what you were saying, is effective.
And this point about having a difficult conversation, I just want to come back to this. Like, I think, you know, we've talked a lot about like, here's how you should quit. And it's a lot of like external factors. I think sometimes going back to the self-awareness piece, if you've worked like 3 or 4 jobs in your career and every single job you've had a big issue with, like, again, it's not all of your fault, but like how you show up in the workplace and in the work environment is somewhat influenced by you. And so I think it's just important to be like, what can I control? Am I contributing to this work environment that I don't want to be in? I think we've all worked with people that like you get energy drained because they're like always complaining about the environment. And you're like, this really isn't that bad. Like I've talked to other friends that are at other companies and like they have it much worse. And so just being thoughtful about like, am I contributing to a culture that like actually is making me want to leave? Like, how could I flip that on its head? So maybe my last piece of advice is talk to people outside of your organization. Actually figure out, like talk to your friends, what is a normal work environment and what isn't? Because sometimes you think your work environment is great, and then you go talk to someone and they're like, wait, you get a $100K bonus and you have like a corner where you can just pet dogs. Like, oh my God, it's lovely. But sometimes you talk to people and it's a wake-up call. You're like, oh, that's a bad situation. I actually have it pretty good. So just get full context about the environment out there for other jobs before you just like put in your 2 weeks and go quit and hope for the best.
I love that. And I'll wrap it up with one final piece of advice.
Okay.
Or one final tactic, which is that if you're wanting to quit, ask yourself, what's one thing that I can do right now or today or this week that will provide more clarity? I think clarity when you're not sure if you want to quit or not is like the best gift you can give yourself.
Yeah.
So if you're feeling underpaid and you want to quit, maybe do some market research.
Yeah.
See, what other companies are willing to pay for your role. If it's, a career path question, you're not sure what's next for you, talk to your manager, have that discussion.
Yep.
And see what they're thinking for your career growth. And if you're not sure what you want to do next, if you're feeling a little bit lost, maybe now is the time to have a coffee with, a coworker that's in a completely different industry or in a different team.
Yeah.
Or somebody in a different industry to start to kind of figure out what you might be interested in doing next.
I love that. Yeah. I think the final tagline is like, do the difficult work first. Have the difficult conversation. Make sure you've exhausted all your options. Kayla, I feel like we agreed too much in this episode.
I know.
I wanted to debate you more.
I know. We should have fought. I should have come up with some really dumb take that we could have yelled about.
We just had too good of takes. But if you don't agree with the takes, you can always email us at permylastemail@morningbrew.com. We love to get your emails. Thanks for everyone who's been sending them in. Are you considering quitting? What's your criteria? Shoot us an email. We'd love to hear from you. Besides that, I think it is time to roll the credits. All right. Our producer is Michaela Heck.
Our technical director is Uchenna Waogu.
Olivia Graham is the associate producer for Morning Brew Daily and made me gritty on Instagram once.
It's horrible. You should see it. And Devin Emery is our chief content officer.
Okay, I didn't think the gritty was that bad. This show is a production of Morning Brew.
Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next week.